Okay, this is college algebra, the chapter 3 practice test. In problem number 1, you're given a parabola. You're being asked to come up with the equation for the parabola. So the first thing that you're going to need is the equation for a vertical parabola. Anything that goes up or down when it's a parabola is given by this equation. Y is equal to A, that'll be the coefficient of the parabola, times x minus h squared plus k. So the thing that is not apparent on the actual graph is the a value. So that's what you're going to work to get, and then you'll be able to give the final answer. All these other things that you see in the equation, the y, the x, the h, the k, those are all visible just by looking at the graph. For instance, h and k stands for your vertex. And on this particular picture, as I said, that is perfectly visible. If you go to -2, +2, that's your vertex. So you have both of the numbers for h and k. So you can check those off. You already have those. Now you need something for x and y, and that can be a point of your choice. Okay, so I'm looking on this graph. You know, I love to pick things with zeros in them if they're available, and they are. This graph goes right through the y-axis at 0, 6. That's the point that I'm going to choose. 0, +6. Okay, so now I have the x as well as the y. So you see that I have everything except the a value. And that being the case, I'll be able to find the a value and then go back and write the answer. Okay, so the y value that I've chosen is 6. So I'll put 6 for y. I don't have the a. The x that goes with that 6 is 0. I do have an h value. It's -2. Put that square on there. And I do have a k value, which is +2. That's h, that's k, this is x, this is y. So your k value is +2. Now let's work this until we get a. Okay, you have an a here. Opposite of a -2 is +2, but you're going to be squaring that. So that's going to be 4 times a. 4 times a. Bring down the +2. There's a 6 over here, has been the whole way down. And then you're going to solve for a. So to solve for a, you're going to subtract 2 from both sides. That'll give you 4a equal to 4. Divide both sides by 4, you get a is equal to 1. Okay, so giving your final answer now. Okay, go back to the equation we had. You're going to leave the y in there. You're going to put the a value that you just found, so you don't have to write anything because it's just a 1. And then the things that you're going to put here, you're going to leave the y and the x as variables, but you're going to actually write the h and the k value. So putting the things that we now know. We know that the a value is 1, and we know that the vertex is -2, +2, which is the h and the k value. So you'll give your answer like this. Y is equal to 1 times x minus the h value with the square plus the k value. So this is x plus 2 squared plus 2. And that is every little step for problem number 1. Okay, moving to problem 2. Problem number 2, they start you off with f of x is equal to x plus 3 squared plus 8. And in this problem, they want you to find the coordinates of the vertex, and that's it. Now this happens to be in vertex revealing form. Whenever there's only one parenthesis, part of the vertex is inside of the parenthesis. But notice that that value, which happens to be the h value, this is where you're going to get the h value, this is where you're going to get the k value. Any number that's associated with the x is also considered a horizontal shift. And anytime we try to identify the horizontal shift as part of a point, you have to switch the sign. So this horizontal shift is really going to be -3, not +3. That horizontal shift is also what we call the h value. So your vertex, which is always the h and the k value, in this case will be -3. This k value is really like a vertical shifter. They never get switched with regard to sign, and that vertical shifter represents the k value. So you switch the value that's with the x, you don't switch the value that's out here with regard to sign, and that's it. So if you just know where to look for the items in number 2, there's really no work for that particular problem. Again, you're going to be seeing the vertex automatically when there's one parenthesis. Okay, moving to number 3. In problem number 3, you have f of x is equal to 4x squared minus 8x minus 9. And in this problem, it says find the axis of symmetry of the parabola. Okay, the axis of symmetry has to do with the vertex. And this is actually the equation. The axis of symmetry is the line that goes right down the center of the parabola. But even without graphing it, it is x equal to whatever the h value is. So there's actually a formula for finding the front part of the vertex. You're not finding the entire vertex. You just need to know the h value in order to give the axis of symmetry. So the h value, there's a formula for it. It goes opposite of b over 2a. You can't just go and grab the h value like you could here just by looking at the number inside the parenthesis, because there are no parentheses in this problem. So this is the alternative way to get the h value. You just go opposite of the b value. Recall that this is a, this is b, this is c. So opposite of the b value would be opposite of -8. That's your b value, everything including the negative, over 2 times the a value. Your a value is 4. So this is +8 on top, +8 on bottom. Your h value is 1. So x equal to whatever your h value came out to be is the axis of symmetry. So if I was to graph this parabola, you would have the vertex, and then right down the center of the parabola would be the line called x equal to 1. They haven't actually asked you to graph it, I don't believe. Take a look at that real quick. No, that's all they wanted was just the axis of symmetry. Let's try that again for problem number 4. Okay, in problem number 4, you have f of x is equal to -5x squared minus 10x. This is the same problem. Notice that there are no parentheses in this problem. And because there's no parentheses and you're being asked for the axis of symmetry, I'll just abbreviate it like that. This is, again, the formula, x equal to whatever the h value is. So you need to get busy looking for the h value. Okay, when there's no parentheses in the problem, you can't just eyeball the problem to get the h value. Instead, you need to use this little formula. Okay, remember that this is A, this is B, this is C. We don't happen to need C. If you were doing a full-fledged quadratic formula, you would, but here it's just opposite of B. That B value is this -10 over 2 times A, and your A value is -5. So you have a +10 on the top, a -10 on the bottom. Your H value turns out to be -1. So now come over here. finish the problem, and give the axis of symmetry in the form that you are supposed to write. Axis of symmetry is a vertical line. All vertical lines start with an x, and then they have some value that the x is equal to, and that would be this number right here. So x equal to -1 is your final answer. Okay, moving to number 5. In problem number 5, okay, let's go back to the actual test paper here. You're being asked to find the vertex and the intercepts. Okay, so that's quite a bit of work. When they say find the x-intercepts, that means you have to find the x-intercepts and the y-intercepts. So I'm going to copy that problem over here, and then I will share the steps with you. And then we'll bring the graph or the information that we find, the intercepts and the vertex, back to the graphing grid. But let me just move it to this paper so that you have enough room to watch me. Okay, first thing I'm going to do, which is the easiest and quickest to find, is the vertex, because this happens to be in vertex revealing form because there's one parenthesis. Okay, the front part of the vertex is right here. This is the h value, but again, any number associated with the x, you need to switch the sign before pulling it out of the parenthesis. Okay, so instead of -2, it's +2. This, on the other hand, is like a vertical, it is a vertical shifter. You don't switch the sign on those. So you always switch the sign, because this is really a horizontal shifter, this h value. They get switched, this one doesn't. No switch on that sign. Okay, so we already have the vertex. Now we're going to go after the intercepts. Now the x-intercepts are harder to find than the y-intercept. The x-intercepts, and try to remember what an intercept is. If you're looking for the x-intercepts, you're letting y be equal to 0, and then you're solving the equation. So this has some steps to it. Whereas when you go to find the y-intercepts, there won't be much to do. Not as much as this anyway. Okay, so we're going to start by letting this happen. We're going to go into this equation, and we're going to let the y value be 0, and then solve for the x-intercepts. Now there are sometimes no x-intercepts, sometimes there's one x-intercept, sometimes there's 2. We're about to find that out. The y being equal to 0, this stands for y. So you're just going to put a 0 in its place, and then you're going to go and copy the rest of the equation. Now in order to solve this, you're going to have to know how to solve a second-degree equation. Easiest way to solve this is to try and isolate the squared term. That means pulling the -6 to the other side, at which point it would become +6. Don't forget to cancel it out so that you don't accidentally use it again. So now you have this term on the right, 3 times x minus 2 squared. Don't square that out, because you want to use the square root property, where we get rid of the square by just taking the square root. But right now I'm trying to get this squared term by itself. So far I got the -6 away from it. So we're over here. Now I want to get the 3 away from it. So now it's x minus 2 squared, and then over here you get 2. Now I'm going to make the square go away. So it's square root, and if you take the square to this side, you have to take the square to this side. On the side where all there is just one number, you want to get both the positive and the negative root, so that you'll get both of the x-intercepts. On this side, the square root, all it does is it makes the square go away. And out comes this radicand, the base. Here, you might want to put that in your calculator. You're going to have to get decimal approximations for the 2 x-intercepts that you're looking for right now, because there is no exact square root of 2. So go ahead and pop that in your calculator. It would be about 1.4. So let's call this square root of 2, 1.4, drop down that plus or minus, continue solving this equation. Like I said, finding the x-intercepts is some steps if you're going to do it by hand, which you're going to need to know how to do. So just add 2 here, add 2 here. Finally, you have 2 different answers for x. Here they are right here. Positive 1.4 plus 2. This is one of them, which is 3.4. That's going to be one of your x-intercepts. Then it's negative 1.4 plus 2, which is equal to, let's see, 0.6. Just put that in the calculator. I put it right in there for you. That is 0.6. Okay, so you now have the 2 x-intercepts. Okay, the other thing that's left for you to find is the y-intercept. So I'll do that right here. The y-intercepts, you let x be equal to 0. If you're looking for the y-intercept, you let the x be 0. If you're looking for the x-intercept, you let the other letter be 0. Okay, always something 0 when looking for intercepts. And this one will be less work than what you did here. Okay, so y-intercepts, you're going to let the x be 0. Okay, so the f of x stands for y. Write a y for that f of x portion. Now go copy the right-hand side of the equation, putting a 0 in for the x. This one will just be a calculation that you can get done pretty quick. So this is 3. 0 take away 2 is just negative 2. Minus that 6. Do this first. That'll be 4. When you square anything, positive or negative, you're going to get a positive. Times 3 is 12. 12 take away 6 is 6. So that's your y-intercept. All of this information together is going to get you the picture. Now we're going to transfer all of this information over to where the graph is. Okay, so we have 2 x-intercepts. There's one of them. There's the other one. You're going to put points on the x-axis at 0.6 and 3.4. We're going to put a point on the y-axis at 6. And then we're going to also graph our vertex. Okay, let's move all that information over to the graphing grid, and then we will get the picture. Okay, so moving back to the test. We have the vertex at 2, -6. It'll be right there. And now I'll go and put the x-intercepts, which were 0.6. Approximate that right there. And 3.4. Be about right there. Okay, so that's a nice healthy approximation. And then you can also put the y-intercept because you are going to continue this leg and you can just show where you're cutting through. That's right there. And you can even make this leg longer also if you'd like. That's the picture. Goes through all the points that I just found algebraically. Hey, don't forget you could also use your calculator on some of these problems to help you with some of the points that are on this. You know, to use, if you go to second calculate, you'll be able to see some of these points that we are calculating by hand. You still have to show the calculations, but you can at least use the calculator to help you check your work. Okay, that completes 1 through 5.